Hey guys, what's going on? It's not gonna be like a. It's not gonna be like the other times where there's like a central topic or anything. We're just here hanging out. Hopefully, you guys are holding out well during this COVID-19 thing. And yes, I'm aware that my avatar is in a desperate need of an update. It will happen soon. No, I wouldn't say that's a fresh cut. That's more like growing hair. Total opposite of fresh cut. So yeah, we're just here hanging out. Let me turn this music down a bit. We're just here hanging out. Ask questions, share stories, whatever, you know. That's all we're doing. There's nothing spectacular about this stream. Two compliments on my shirts. Flames 2.0, nice Ashiki. Corin Sir Bellinger, like your shirt, thanks. I mean, it's just a cheap little thing I ordered online. It's kind of what my avatar is modeled off of, so. Sorry, my voice is a little cloudy today. I heard they shut down the entire school year in Virginia. Really? That's crazy. Here, schools are all shut down, or yeah, they're all shut down, but they had them shut down until April 6th, but that's definitely going to be extended. My school, personally, they're opening back up on April 6th, but it's all going to be online, so, which I don't know why. My instructor tried to get push for that before everything shut down, and they declined his request, so, I mean, lesson learned, I guess, for them. Guess they should have taken his advice. What's up, Ghost Hero? Would you like moderator powers in this in the stream as well? Hidden history, nice twist jab. I was actually considering getting those. Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to grow out dreadlocks. Fun fact, I actually used to have dreadlocks when I was in my teens. When I was around, I think it was like 15 to 18. Yeah, like 15 to 18 I had dreadlocks, but I cut them before I joined the army, so. Because obviously dreadlocks are not a good thing in the army. Hi, someone from country Ivory Coast said that Europeans brought prosperity and peace to Africa. That's before we were all due of malaria, famine. That's just colonial ideologies views. That's really like there's no other explanation for that. Because are countless pieces of evidence being presented time and time again showing that Africa wasn't just this war-torn, poverty-stricken place that everybody makes it out to be. Like, Africa being that way today is a result of colonialism, not a there's no way that Africa, being the birthplace of mankind, has perpetually been living in that state for hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, anybody with a brain could figure that out. I was on spring break when the first coronavirus case hit my home state of Delaware. Then my university closed its doors. Yeah, my school closed before Ohio mandated it, but yeah, everything's closed now. Had them and undid them. Yeah, growing out dreadlocks, I'm sure you probably heard them refer to it as a journey. It really is a journey. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of maintenance, just a lot of time. But once it's all done, it's little to no maintenance or time. Like I said, I had them when I was younger, so unfortunately I can't really the person who does them, I can't really get them maintained because coronavirus, so just having to stick it out on my own, unfortunately. What are your thoughts on the ADOS movement? ADOS movement. What is ADOS? ADOS? I can't really. I don't know if I've ever heard of that. We get 600 euro fines if we leave the house if we don't have a movement authorization letter. Wow, really? Even if you're just like getting groceries or something, Chris? That's crazy. Like, we're allowed to go out and get groceries and stuff. Groceries, essential jobs, and medical. Those are the only reason we're allowed to leave. But like I said, the cops aren't pulling you over asking you, "Hey, show me your permit." You know, like that's not happening. Hey, I got in a fight with my family about whether Cleopatra was black. I told them she was mostly Greek and she was, bl- and if she was black, she would, they, if she was black, at most she was half black, and they call me dumb and wrong. It's no point in trying to argue with people who are trying to say Egypt was a black civilization, etc. There's no point. Everybody wants to prove that Egypt was exclusively their race and no other race. And if you don't agree with that, you're an idiot. That's the way people look at it, unfortunately. So it's just a waste of time. Love your new setting. Thank you. Yeah, that is courtesy of my artist. I haven't heard from her in a while, so I hope she's doing all right. But yeah, she's a permanent member of the From Nothing team, and you will be seeing more spectacular stuff like that in the near future. If she, like I said, I haven't heard from her in a while, so let's just hope everything's fine. You have to show a receipt, huh? Oh, they don't. Damn, that's crazy. Well, I mean, Spain has the second largest number of cases in the world. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense. Italy, then Spain, followed by the United States. Or, sorry, not cases, but deaths. So, Italy, Spain, United States. So, I mean, they have to be strict, otherwise people are going to keep dying, unfortunately. What the hell is this backdrop? That's the architecture of the Ashanti Empire from what is now modern day Ghana. Let's see. How do you start growing dreadlocks? Well, basically, you just there's multiple ways you can start, and also depends on how you want them to look in the end. But in the grand scheme of things, the basic thing is you just twist your hair. You part and twist your hair, and over time, the hair just kind of like grows in and knots up, basically like an organized knot, and eventually it becomes a dreadlock. Like it becomes so knotted that it becomes locked, which is why it's called a dreadlock. It's there's not really much to it. It just takes a lot of time and patience. Where'd you get the headset? I ordered this on Amazon. It's a Corsair Void Pro headset, wireless surround sound. I love it. Unfortunately, the ear pads, this one's falling out. It's practically just balanced in here right now. And I ordered some new ones, but with the quarantine thing going on, Amazon has increased delay times on their orders, so it's going to be like, I ordered it like a couple weeks ago, and it's going to be over a month from the date I ordered it that I actually get them, so that sucks. But yeah, this headset's great. Also, your music is even better. Appreciate that. That's thanks to you guys, your support, your views, my patrons, all that. It allows me to constantly improve my content. You know, I'm not blowing all the more money and stuff I make off this channel on just new shoes and stuff like that. I'm constantly trying to improve the channel. And my artist, for example, I paid her to make me that background. My setup, my music, that's a subscription based thing. I'm just constantly trying to make things as good as I can, and you guys are helping me do that, so I really appreciate that. Whether it's a direct support, a donation, or just a view on my video, it's all helping. Hey, any collab planned? Home team history, we discussed a collab about a week ago, actually, so you can expect something like that sometime soon. Also, Emperor Tiger Star, we have somewhat of a collab planned. He has a series called Bad Maps, and anybody who's looked up any maps of African empires knows that African maps are just the norm. Unfortunately, bad African maps. So, inspired by his series, I'm going to make a series basically showing bad maps and explaining why they're bad. And he said he wants to hop in and say a thing or two in it, just to kind of help me out, I guess. I'm not sure. But yeah, he said it sounded good and he would like to be a part of it, so we'll see. How big is the From Nothing team? It's very small right now. We only have, besides me, we have 4 members. We do have people popping in and out for collaborations and stuff, but 4 permanent members. But even still, only there's really only one member who is consistently active in it. We will be recruiting at some point soon, but we need to lay out a very well structured list of requirements and criteria before we do that again. Whereas your social media from nothing, my moderators could hopefully help you out with that. But if you look at the top right, you can see the Twitter. My Twitter is on there. My Facebook, I don't really give that out anymore because I honestly plan on deleting it because I don't use it. So, but Twitter's right top right of the stream, and then the Discord. A moderator could probably help you out with that with a link, hopefully, if you guys love me enough. Sees bad maps, starts vomiting. Yeah, you will see plenty of them. I promise. Like perfectly circular African empires, and just no consistency. I'm not even gonna spoil it. That may be one of my next videos. I already have the script started for that one, so it'll probably be like an ongoing series. I'm an introvert, so it doesn't really bother me. What does bother me is the fact that I cannot find disinfectant spray anywhere. Yeah, I'm an introvert too, hence why I spend so much time behind my computer screen. What I'm doing right now is the most social I ever get. Yeah, I'm not even joking. So, what inspired you to start your channel? I always loved history. And growing up, for me, history was what we usually think of: knights and Greeks and Romans and samurais and pretty much every part of the world in Eurasia. But then one day it just hit me. I'm like, so is my history really just my struggle against white men? Is that all my history is? I was a slave, then I was segregated, now I'm free but still discriminated against. Is that all my history consists of? So out of my own intuition and my own inquiry, I did some research, and I'm just like, wow, like why don't I ever see this stuff? Why don't I ever hear about these things? Why don't we learn them in schools? So it's just eventually, like, that got to the point where I was like, people need to know this stuff. I want people, ideally, my content. Actually, before I continue, if you guys can tell me your ages right now, I'm curious because a lot of my analytics say that most people are in my age group, but honestly, I want teenagers in early 20s primarily, because those are the people who are gonna perpetuate this kind of content and learn from this and get inspired and motivated. That's my goal here. I know a lot of people lie about their ages and stuff, so the analytics aren't always going to be entirely accurate. But anyway, yeah, that's my goal. I just want people to know about this stuff. I want them to know that, as I say in my videos, we don't come from nothing. I want them to know we don't come from nothing. I want people to know that there are tons of really interesting things about our history that we can talk about all the time, that we can learn about all the time. We can make movies about. We can make movies like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, but like with an African flavor to it, I want that kind of stuff. Alright, so I guess the analytics are correct for the most part. Most of the people in my age group, I'm 28, so I think it said 25 to 36 or something. I can't remember how it was broken down. But yeah, I guess it was mostly correct, but I'm still seeing quite a few people in their early 20s and in teens, which is awesome. What you just said about how you got into history is how I got into African history, pretty much. Yeah, I just wish there were more people like that. Most people, in general, history is not the most, let's just say, it's not the most popular topic, history in general, let alone African history, so that's the problem. And I don't think we can really be proud of who we are or build upon what we've accomplished if we're not proud of where we came from. And pride in where we came from just consists of how we successfully won the struggle against the white man. The end. That's yay, I guess. I'm happy that we've overcome those obstacles. I'm grateful. I have nothing but respect for our predecessors. Thank you so much for the donation, Hodakis. I appreciate it. Like, I really do. Thank you. But like I was saying, I'm happy and I have nothing but respect for the people who contributed towards that. But at the same time, it's like all too often we just think that that's where our history started and ended, which is not the case at all. Got any recommendations for medieval African movies, or are they all going to be Northern Africa? Um, what do you mean recommendations? Like ones I've seen and would recommend you watching, or recommendations as to what I think would be a good topic for one? I'm writing a novel right now similar to that and have an incredible source of knowledge and direction. Awesome. Yeah, actually, I got I retweeted somebody mentioned to me in a tweet earlier today with this video, pretty much giving a crash course on the traditions of magic, so to speak, in African history, and how like Harry Potter got it completely wrong because he tried to expand the. It's largely Eurocentric, and then he tried to expand and define magic in other regions, and apparently got it horribly wrong with Africa. And it was a very interesting watch, and I'm just very glad I can provide that kind of inspiration to people. Like it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing the original goal from nothing. Hadakis, have a drink, my dude. I am having a drink. Don't worry. I'll take both. Well, honestly, I can't say I've seen any pre-colonial movies in Africa. Um, I think I've seen a long time ago. I saw Things Fall Apart. Was it Thing? I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, there really isn't any content out there that exclusively focuses on like historical Africa. You won't see a movie open up and like there's this massive city and the gates open up and there's these African warriors on a horse. Like you don't see that. It's always like the samurais or the. You even have Apocalypto, which was entirely in a Mayan language, based on Mesoamerica. But you just don't have that kind of stuff for Africa. So that's what Black Panther kind of pointed us in the right direction, fortunately. But it's not, for one, it's not pre-colonial. Two, it's a fantasy, and three, it's kind of just like a hodgepodge of African civilizations. It doesn't focus on one specific civilization, which is cool. Love that movie. Nothing but respect for it, but it's still not quite exactly what we need. Also, if I miss your question, by the way, understandably, if I miss your question, feel free to post it again, because I can't always keep up with the chat. Kuriku and the Oh yeah, that movie. I watched that. I can't really say I'm much of a fan for it. Basically, the problem I have with that is the storyline and the storyline and just the way it worked and the way it was just very, very simplistic and seemed like it was written for children, which is cool. But at the same time, it had a bunch of nudity, which I get it. In traditional African societies, there were different definitions of what constitutes as nudity. Like women walked around topless, children walked around naked, so on and so forth. But the storyline seemed geared towards children, so it just didn't really make any sense to me. I feel like they probably should have given it a storyline more geared towards like a mature audience. And other because it's really hard to explain. It's like basically making an episode of Blue's Clues, but everybody is naked. That's pretty much the way I saw it. So it was a noble effort, but I think it was poorly executed. That's my best way of describing it. Really appreciate the $5 donation, Titan. Thank you so much. Welcome back, Jabari. They have to make a movie on Mansa Musa. I actually remember hearing something about that. I don't remember the details, but I do remember hearing something about them wanting to make a movie on Mansa Musa, as well as hearing about them wanting to make one on Yasuke, the Black Samurai. If anybody knows any more details, feel free to post links, and moderators, go ahead and approve them, please. especially you, Hidden History, because I know you were very enthusiastic about posting that link to the Discord. It was Kugler. What's going on, Raycaster? Hope they make an actual movie about Sunjata Kita, the original Lion King. Yeah. Yeah, see, I know I probably go over this every single live stream, but how Disney just has this incessant aversion to making an African princess movie. Like, the only African movies they have are Lion King, which is talking lions and based on a European legend, and then they have Tarzan, which is a white man living in the primitive, savage jungles of Africa, and that's it. Meanwhile, they got Asian princesses, South American princes, North American princesses, European princesses, everything. The closest thing to an African princess they have is Tiana. Tiana? Did I say that right? I can't remember. From Princess and the Frog. So it's great that they finally, in 2009, 100 years after they were established, released a black princess, who doesn't even have a black prince, by the way. But I still don't think it's enough, because being black is not the same thing as being African. And all too often people try to downplay African as if it doesn't really deserve any attention or shouldn't have its own place in the spotlight. That's the problem I have with it. It always annoyed me that Disney's first black princess had a story based on European folklore. Yeah, same. Even Lion King, same thing. Even though they're not even humans, they're lions. That's the main problem. But two, it was based on a European folklore, so it's a big problem. They actually stole Lion King from a Japanese animator, Kemba the White Lion. Huh. I never knew that. Yeah, I did like Lion King, don't get me wrong. There are Disney movies that I love, and Lion King is definitely one of my favorite ones. Like, they're amazing, they're part of me, they're part of my childhood. I remember growing up and watching it on the VHS in my VCR, you know, and loving it and wanting to watch it again. I remember those days. But that feeling, that impact that I got as a kid, there are no black heroes. There are no African heroes or African fantasies that gave me that feeling. They're all white or Eurocentric. So, and which Disney, granted, is a Western company. I got it. Doesn't surprise me, doesn't bother me that the majority of their princesses are white. Doesn't bother me whatsoever. Makes perfect sense. But when you have an Asian one, two Native American ones, two Polynesian ones, and pretty much Arabian ones, and pretty much every other part of the world, but no African, that's when it bothers me. It's like, why exclude Africa? Why is that such the common theme? That's what bothers me. I want people to grow up feeling inspired by people who look like them. You know, and that's, again, that's why From Nothing exists. I want people to see stuff and get inspired, and I want them to know that, hey, look at this really awesome stuff that us and our ancestors do and have done, versus, oh, congratulations, you're no longer a slave. The end. You know, that's as simple as I can put it. Was African slavery similar to European serfdom? Well, Africa's a big continent, for one, so I can't really speak for the whole continent. But yes, generally speaking, if we use the Mali Empire, for example, as a basis, yes, slaves were not considered subhuman. If you were not Islamic, you were subject to being a slave, but you still weren't considered subhuman. You usually were a slave from war or for crimes. Serfdom, that's a little bit different, because serfs weren't really slaves, so to speak. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not the topic I'm most knowledgeable in, but serfs were really more of like people who lived off the land of nobles and kind of like worked to earn their keep, like pretty much by choice. It wasn't necessarily like hey, you have to work for me. You have no choice. You're inferior. It didn't really work that way. So, have you seen the movie Njinga, Queen of Angola? I have not. Is that Nollywood or is that a Western film? In Mali, slavery only lasted one generation. Yeah, yeah. You weren't born a slave. Exactly. You weren't genetically born a slave from the womb, with the transatlantic slave trade. You were the consequences of your actions in your life determine whether you're a slave or not. Sounds like Roman slavery is quite it's more illegal than anything else, and a serf is a person who's attached to the land and can't leave, different from a peasant. Huh. Yeah, I do remember learning about that in college, but I remember immediately seeing the parallels between that and slavery, but it's still they still weren't. I think it's something that it's too complex to give a simple answer to. That's the best way I can put it. We're all living in Egypt's land. What do you mean by that, Sonia? What kind of advice would you give a person trying to do their own research about pre-colonial African things like books and websites, etc.? I would recommend starting off at Wikipedia. I mean, everybody, a lot of people are gonna be like, "No, don't do that," But hear me out. Start off at Wikipedia. Find interesting sections of that page, something that grabs your attention. Find a little citation number next to it. Click on that, and then at the bottom of the page, they will have all the sources and references cited. And then just find that original source, look that up, read through that, and then if you see more stuff within that original source that interests you, look those up too. And just kind of keep digging down a rabbit hole. Another good simple thing is to type in key points and then type PDF afterwards. Like, say you want to know about, I don't know, Mansa Musa. Type in like bibliography of Mansa Musa, or sorry, biography of Mansa Musa PDF. Just type PDF at the end. More than likely, you're going to get some kind of college paper pop up in your results. And if you don't, try variations of what you typed before. That's usually what I do when I research things. I don't think Mali Empire practiced castration. That was mostly Arabs. Yeah, I don't think so. Because the Mali Empire, like I said, their form of slavery was very tolerant. Actually, in their constitution, the Korakon Fuga, they specifically said, "Do not ill-treat slaves. You are their master, not their bag to carry." It specifically condoned mistreating slaves. It also specifically said that you should give them at least 1 day per week to rest. So clearly they valued, and they were protected under the rights and laws of the empire. It wasn't just something that people said. It was basically, and the Korakon Fuga was contemporary with the Magna Carta. I think there was only like a 10-year difference between them, but we never hear about that. It was a full blown Bill of Rights, basically. JSTOR is a good place to research also. Yes, it is, but unfortunately, unless you have specific rights or privileges to it, like you're part of an institution or you pay money, it's they do limit you quite a bit on how much stuff you can look at, and you also can't download things, which makes it very, very difficult. I will give a patron so we can get a video on King Shango, who is worshipped in Orisha to this day across the world. I actually mentioned Shango in quite a few of my videos, and honestly, I think there is so much I could talk about him. So yeah, I would definitely fulfill that request if you made a patron request for that. I've mentioned him before, and one thing I find really interesting is how similar he is to the Norse god Thor, which of course is hogging the spotlight. There's so many parallels between them I could go on about, but I'm not gonna do that right now. As a fellow researcher, I have advice for how to find stuff. Use an advanced Google search and search for sites ending in .edu and museum site. Yeah, I do that as well. .edu, .pdf. Not so much .org, but .edu and .pdf are the ones I usually look for. Yeah, Wikipedia, it has a bad reputation because people can edit things. I've come across it as well, especially being an African historian. I've come across. I remember I looked up the Benin Empire, and it was talking about the warriors, and then like randomly as I'm reading through it, I'm like, wait, what? And it said something about they ate bananas. They ate bananas daily, or something along, basically comparing them to monkeys. And I'm like, wow, okay, somebody obviously edited that. Fortunately, got fixed very promptly, but in the majority of cases, Wikipedia highly values accurate sources, and they will take your stuff down if they discover that it's not. Obviously, it's hard to enforce that when any and everyone and their mama can edit things, but in the grand scheme of things, and in the majority of cases, things are very accurate. Africa, can't say as much because it doesn't seem like they pay as much attention to that. African sources tend to be a bit skewed. So if you read something, take it with a grain of salt. For example, when working on the mapping video of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, we made a video, the first video we made on Songhai, which is now unlisted, you can't watch it without the link. We made the Songhai Empire conquer the Mosi kingdoms, because that's what Wikipedia said, and they had the source. But when we actually read through the source, it never specifically said they were conquered. It just said that they led campaigns down into the Mosi kingdoms, but it never said they conquered them. And then we found two other sources on our own that specifically said the Mosi kingdoms were invaded by Songhai, but not subjugated. So, yeah, just things like that you gotta look out for. What is your favorite African weapon? I can't really narrow it down. There's so many. Like, African weapons never cease to amaze me. Honestly, they look like stuff straight out of Final Fantasy. Were bananas, plantains even native to Africa in that area? They weren't native, but they were cultivated. And have been cultivated for thousands of years, yes. It's actually an enigma. Like, a lot of researchers still don't really have an idea how they got there. Because generally accepted academia says that relations between East Asia, like Southeast Asia and Africa, were not established until like the first few millenniums CE, possibly the first few millenniums BC. But there's evidence of bananas dating long before that, so evidence of bananas grown in Africa. But they came from Southeast Asia. That's definitive. And CDB was a well-known script and useful. Yeah, in a very specific region of Africa, yeah. The Igbo people of southern Nigeria. I like the Takoba sword. Yeah, Takoba's cool. I mean, it looks very similar to like a European broadsword, to be honest. That's actually the sword that I used in my, for the icons, the cross swords in my mapping video of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. I used the Takoba for that. But yeah, it looks... Apparently they were the Takoba and the European broadsword are actually have share a common ancestor. I remember reading something about that somewhere. Were you the ones who come up with Project Africa? I was not. I was invited to it because most of the historians in it were primarily of European descent, and they wanted someone who focuses specifically on African history to be in it. They reached out to myself and Home Team. Home Team was not interested. I went in. I'm sure you guys may have noticed the topics were pretty watered down African history, unfortunately, for the most part. They were still good, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them were very watered down, and a lot of them were very Eurocentric, like a European explorer discovering the Nile River source and, stuff like that. I was going to do a review video on it, but I may do it at some point, but I pretty much just fell off that bandwagon. But for the most part, it was a noble effort, but I think it was poorly executed. I did my best to try to steer them into more African-centered topics. But while some people agreed, and a lot of people agreed, and even adjust their topics accordingly, a lot of them just thought I was being overly dramatic and just wanted to stay in their comfort zone, basically. So, and it's whatever. I can't change people's minds if they don't want to change them. What do you think would have changed if Reconstruction was successful? What do you mean if Reconstruction was successful? Was it not? Reconstruction was just to make sure the South. I mean, I guess it did segregation happen, but for the most part, I mean, slavery was abolished, and the poverty that the South fell into was fixed for the most part. You ever said this? The link between the nickname Bebe in Africa and link between shouting in church in Africa. African Americans often think all was lost or there is no link. I've read a little bit on that before. I wouldn't say Bebe, but African church traditions as well as certain things we don't even think about. For example, when we say something is cool or that's chill, cool and chill, associating something cold with something that's good or relaxed actually has its origins in West African languages. A lot of people don't know that, but and surprisingly enough, it was one of my teachers in middle school that taught that to me. So, yeah, it's before then. If it weren't for African slaves, we would never say, "Oh, that's cool," or "Oh, you're chill, don't worry." You know, we wouldn't. That wouldn't be a thing. My cat keeps scratching up the back of my chair. Just for that, she's gonna be a star against her will. Her heart's beating so fast. She's like, I do not like this at all. Yeah, stop scratching my chair. When I'm employed again, I'd love to donate to your Patreon and see a video on Ngolo, a martial art invented in Angola. Huge fan of martial arts movies. Is she seriously scratching my chair again? Oh, okay. I thought she was. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I hear that people make that request quite often, but it's not me being greedy or anything. It's just I only fulfill video requests for patrons just as a show of appreciation. If I was fulfilling everyone's request, I'd never have time to do it. Even with patrons, I had to make the requirements more stringent because I just couldn't keep up. Were swords used in African warfare as much as Europe or Asia? Yeah, definitely, 100%. But I mean, one misconception is that the sword was not the primary weapon in basically any culture. Swords were like pulling out a pistol, for example. Soldiers don't go into battle with a pistol in their hand. That's like they're out of ammo. Some people are rushing in. They yank out their pistol to defend themselves. That's what a sword was for in most warfare. Like when things got really tight and close. Spears were the primary weapon of war in most cultures throughout history. Explain the connection between cool and its origin in Africa again. Which kingdom specifically? So various peoples of West Africa used their indigenous word for cold, something cold, to describe something good or relaxed. And it kind of just carried over with African slaves to the Americas, and obviously got translated. What are your thoughts on the BBC alternate history series Knots plus Crosses? I haven't heard about it. There's an alternate history series? If so, that's pretty cool. I've only ever seen it on like YouTube and Reddit and stuff like that. I've never seen an actual TV series. That's a pretty cool idea. Spears are the main weapon of war all over the world. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are exceptions, obviously. Like, for example, the Nubians were primarily archers. A lot of Native American cultures as well. North American natives, more specifically, were primarily archers. But yes, the majority of people in general, regardless of part of the world, the majority of cultures were primarily, as they would say, spear chuckers. Spears are just a much more practical weapon. You have a long stick with a pointy thing at the end, and you stab people with it. Why get close if you don't need to? And then, bows and arrows, they were just impractical to. You're not going to walk right up to somebody and shoot them with arrows, and there's the shields and all kinds of things you can protect from arrows. So arrows are really, in most cases, were more of like something to just soften up the enemy lines, break the ranks, and they also required a lot of training. Like, it doesn't matter if you're training from when you're a little kid to an adult, it's something that requires a lot of training. Weapons and crossbows or like firearms and crossbows on the other hand, you just aim and fire. Of course, there is some training that was required, but a bow and arrow, it's something that you have to master, basically. So unless there is a culture specifically cookie cut for archery traditions, spears are the best choice because they require very minimal training. Grab your long stick with a pointy thing and stab somebody. You know, that's all you need to know. And it's much quicker and more efficient to train large armies on how to do that. If Europeans had just traded with Africa and not colonized it, would Africa have caught up with the world? I think yes. I think that's a very simple answer. Of course. Like look at Japan, for example. Japan's a powerhouse now because Europeans never colonized them. I honestly don't even know if they even tried. If you haven't heard, there was the black ships. The United States, Japan went into an isolationist policy. So the United States in the 1800s sent a fleet of black ships to Japan. They were steamboats. They had smoke coming out of their stacks. They had cannons, all this modern artillery. Basically aimed them all at Japan and said, "Hey, open up your trade ports or we're blowing you up. Your choice." So they were like, "Okay, fine, we're good." And Japan was humiliated because they were used to being, they were a proud people and they were used to being a powerhouse, and they were like, "Whoa, so this is what happens when we isolate ourselves? We don't learn all these new things and we get bullied into submission? Yeah, let's make a change." And that's what they did. And I'm sure there actually were some African societies. There were some African societies that did attempt to do that, like the Kingdom of Wasselu. They locally manufactured modern repeating rifles and modern ammunition as well, like actual bullets with shell casings and everything. They were doing that on a indigenous local level until the French invaded them and practiced a scorched earth policy where they just burned everything they ran into until Wasselu was like, "Okay, fine, we surrender." Pretty much like what the nuclear bomb did to Japan, but on a smaller scale. So yes, definitely think Africa would have caught up. Where there is a human brain and a goal and a motivation or an incentive, things will happen, things will advance. That's the story. That's the epitome of human thought and human creative processes. Have you ever... Did I miss a question? Yeah. Thoughts on African-Caribbean geopolitical relations? Political stuff isn't really my biggest area of expertise, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask that. I usually try to steer clear of politics. They just make my head hurt, if I'm being honest. I see where you're coming from. I don't believe in evolution at all. Just want to ask what I think is view. Not here to cause strife, my brother. Oh, that was not directed at me. Okay. What was the source for that? What was the source for what? Have you ever heard of Gannibal, the African general, that fought? I guess you meant to say fought for the Russian Empire in the 18th century. I have. I actually saw that Kings and General video released on it not so long ago, too, and it was honestly, it made me happy to see it. It really did. I do wish, however, that Kings and Generals would, just like everything else, media, Disney, all my complaints, I do wish that they would just make a specifically, unapologetically African civilization video. Like 30 minute documentary, the Benin Empire. You know? Instead, the 3 videos they have on black people that I'm aware of are all about black people in other civilizations. Black guy in Japan, black guy in Russia, black guy in India. You know, I want to see a black guy in Africa. And it seems all too often History channels just kind of are afraid to do that, which is another reason why From Nothing exists. Favorite African food? I haven't had very many, but I did make some homemade jollof rice a few times, and I loved it. It was amazing. once I'm a bit more stable financially and just get things together in general, I'm probably gonna actually start making some traditional African dishes and making videos of it as well. Because I love food and I love cooking. So what better African foods? I just think that like all the spices and ingredients are just like there's just so much flavor. Like it makes me realize how boring American foods are. So yeah, definitely something I'm gonna want to dig more into. The king that made the gun bullets until the French told him to stop by burning it down. Yeah, basically, Jermaine, that's pretty much what happened. The History Channel is a dumpster fire. The History Channel isn't even a History Channel anymore. It's like, I'm a redneck and this is all the tough stuff I deal with all the time channel. That's all it is. It's like, I'm a redneck. I go fishing in dangerous waters. That's all it is. It's not even actually history anymore. I don't even know. They like should probably change the name. Because they're afraid of the backlash below, you gotta take that into account. People want to avoid criticism. It doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter what you upload a video on, you're gonna get criticized. I get criticized every single day of my life. Every single day that I wake up in the morning, pull up my phone, check my comments, there's always somebody angry. Hell, I've had all in one video, the video on the Moors, I had angry white guys telling me the Moors weren't black. I had angry black guys telling me the Moors weren't white. I had angry Arab and North African people telling me the Moors weren't black. Even though I didn't say they were black or white or Arab, I said they were a multitude of races, but the majority of them were Berbers or North Africans. But people are so blinded by their agendas that they're just going to complain either way. Like all in the same video, all complaining about contradictory things that they claim that I said. It's really the grand scheme of things. That's how online toxicity works, unfortunately. I hope you take a DNA test. I hope to take a DNA test myself soon. You've done so for yourself. Can you recommend anything? Actually, I've been meaning to make another video on that because they updated the results yet again. So my results are different yet again for the second time. Thank you for the $2 donation, Flames. I really appreciate it. What foods did the people of old West Africa eat? Like I said, that's an area that I'm trying to explore more. But for the most part, it seems like their foods were very similar to Caribbean foods, which is where a lot of Caribbean foods got their inspiration from. Just a lot of actually, another fun fact: fried chicken, as much of a stereotype that is for African Americans, or watermelon, same thing. Both of those have their origins in Africa, so it's a stereotype that has some truth to it. I mean, me personally, I love fried chicken, but I'd much rather have a burger or a steak. It's not like my go-to. Like, oh my god, I really want some fried chicken bad right now. It's just one of those things. But yeah, as far as I know, a lot of West African foods are definitely they have a lot of parallels with Caribbean foods, modern Caribbean foods. Hey Jabari, what are your thoughts on the history of Ethiopian Jews and Judaism in Africa, specifically the biblical figures? Religion is just one of those things where everybody is going to try to tie it back to their ancestors for legitimacy, like the Solomonic dynasty, for example, of Ethiopia. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I'm not saying it's right, but the Songhai Empire, for example, did the same thing. They claim that they're descended from a Yemeni, I'm pretty sure, the Zhou dynasty, a Yemeni prince, something like that. Same with the Hausa, same with several other groups across the world, Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa. They always tried to tie their ancestors back to something that legitimatizes their religious or political influence. I remember eating some Ethiopian food while I was in Addis Ababa. Nice. I've never been to Africa before, but I would really. That's one of my goals. I'd love to visit an African country, and you're gonna better believe I'm gonna vlog the whole thing too, whenever that day does come. Sorry, I'm just scrolling back up in some chat. I think I missed quite a bit of stuff. How old is jollof rice? Flames. I don't know. I mean, it's called jollof rice based on the jollof, which is named after the Jollof Empire, but its most popular, like the most famous jollof rice is from Nigeria and from Ghana, neither of which is anywhere near the Jollof Empire. So I'm not even entirely sure on the details of this. It's really hard to find information on it. Most obscure African historical fact you know? Define obscure. Really appreciate the $5 donation, Hocticus. If you could pick a subject for a theatrical movie, what would you choose? I want to watch an Axumite trader interact with Romans and Indians. I would say thank you so much for the $10 donation, Geg. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, guys. Like I don't even know. Like every time it happens, I never get over it. I can't get over the support you guys give. Give you your hard-earned money, especially during this time. Like I really appreciate it. But if I could pick a theatrical movie, it would definitely be somewhere in West Africa. Because, admittedly, I'm a little biased because I'm African American and our ancestors are primarily from West Africa. And so I will want something on like, I don't know, like the Battle of Krina from Mali Empire or the Anglo-Ashanti Wars, just something that just shows how awesome our history and our warfare and our people were in the past versus the drum beating primitives in the middle of the forest that everybody thinks we were. Which, there's nothing wrong with beating drums or living in the forest or any of that, but you get what I'm saying. Like, just small, scattered agglomerations of huts and tribes and nothing more. Like, our people were capable of more than that. And scattered agglomerations of tribes and huts existed in the majority of the world until recently. So, a lot of people fail to realize that as well. Obscure isn't something that you'd use to impress an academic. I'd say our immunity to smallpox, as we know it today, was taught to Americans by Africans. And cesarean sections were only ever successfully practiced to where the mother and the child survived, as we know them today. The only other place in the world prior to modern Western medicine that they were practiced was in Africa. That's another fact I'd love to flaunt. Now is a great time to upload a video about indigenous African inoculation. I have mentioned that in a video before, actually. But yeah, it was recommended I do a video about indigenous African disease remedies and practices. So I did think about that. I may very well do it. I'm not sure. I don't like to commit to things because I just have a million ideas in my head all the time. So definitely something I'm considering. That's for sure. Because the inoculation I didn't really discuss as thoroughly as I would have liked to. Or just medicinal practices in general. I disagree. Historum is terrible. I completely agree. Historum is very Eurocentric community. I've actually been banned from there before, by the way. Relentlessly banned from there, but that's a story for a different time. Concerning African influence on things, someone mentioned that the phenomenon of speaking in tongues is in sects of Christianity like Pentecostalists has its origins in African practices. I honestly don't know anything about that. Now's a great time to upload. I already read that part. Did you know ancient Israelites had influences from African cultures such as the Ethiopians, Cush, Kenites, and Canaanites and Phoenicians? I mean, Phoenicians were a partially African civilization, so it wouldn't really surprise me. And Israelites, They did interact with the Nile Valley civilization, so also it doesn't surprise me. You made your own empire, so jokes on them. Exactly. And you guys are all noble members of the empire. The younger generation, at least where I live, cares less about tribe. Yeah, I could go on a long list of my opinions on the word tribe and its context in general, but I'm not going to right now. I'll make a video for that in the future. But needless to say, I don't like the word tribe at all. I completely denounce that term. Hello, I really like your channel. You are one of the best references for Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you, Danilo. I really appreciate that. I try to be. I really do. Can't please everyone, obviously, but I always do my best to be. Germanic tribes defeated the Roman Empire in the Forest, famous battle. You just have to spin the story right. Yeah, and they're glorified for that. You know, that's like a story that we hear about all the time. It's like, for example, when I watched the movie Troy, you saw this awesome scene where Achilles got a spear. He just like throws it, and it hits a guy right in the neck and kills him. And then Hector's like, when the guy dies, you know, and you're watching the movie, you're like, wow, that is awesome. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Replace that exact same scene with a black man. Right away, people will probably be laughing, saying, typical spear chucker. It's just a deeply ingrained problem with our culture and our society, unfortunately. I mean, when I was in the army, I was in Korea. Most of the Koreans there were really good runners. They could run pass their PT tests and really fast speeds. They were great runners. Every time I met a black person or an African, or obviously both, people would always make jokes and say, yeah, it's those African genes. They had to train to run away from lions. Korean, impressive. White person, impressive. Black person, genes because he had to run from lions. So it's a problem. It's just a deeply ingrained problem. It's gonna take a while. It's not gonna go away overnight. It's gonna take a while to go away. Have you heard of the Garamantes civilization? Yes, I have. Haven't done a super large amount of research, but yes, I have heard of them. I don't like to call myself African American because I wasn't born in it. Thank you. I say that all the time. I can't tell you how many people I've said that to. As much as I'm proud of my ancestry and how much I want to teach it to the world, I'm not African. I'm wearing an African dashiki right now. I have an African history YouTube channel, but I'm not African. I'm American. I'm not African American. So it's just the only way you could even somewhat validate calling me an African American is by calling every white American a European American. And it's so deeply ingrained that I've had people where I've asked them, why are we called African Americans when we're not born in Africa? And they say, because your ancestors were born there. And I'm like, yeah, but your ancestors were born in Europe. And they say, well, there were white people in Canada and Australia, though. That's when I just like face palm and give up on them, because obviously ignorance is the enemy at that point. Also, moderators, if there's any messages that are blocked that are fine, like the one right now, please approve them. Thank you. Black Americans don't claim to be descendants of Egyptians. Black Americans don't claim to be descendants of Egyptians. Black Americans claim Egypt was black civilization. I beg to differ. I do see a lot of Black Americans who try to claim Egyptians, because they try to claim any civilization that is more than the tribal West African, just to feel better about themselves. I understand why they do it, but it sucks. Thank you again for yet another donation, Hocticus. Really appreciate it. Hello, African American. I am a German American. You're a German American? German American as in your ancestors are German, or German American as in you're an immigrant? Black Americans should be the only group referred to as black. White Americans should be the only group referred to as white. They're distinct ethnicities with long roots in this country. Yeah, because most white Americans and most black Americans, in the grand scheme of things, were just Americans. Like, I can't say I'm Igbo or Yoruba or Akan, and most white guys can't say they're German or French or Scottish. They might know a few things here and there, but for the most part, they're just a big hodgepodge of Europeans, and we're just a big hodgepodge of Africans. More so with us than them. So we're in the grand scheme of things, we're just American. It's really that simple. Did you have a weird nickname while in the army? My dad, while doing his military service, was studying physics and chemistry and was called the Alchemist. No, but for some reason, once people found out my first name, because we all go by our last names in the military, for some reason, whenever people found out my first name, like, it just like infectiously spread. Like everybody was just calling me by my first name for a good solid year, and I'm not sure why. There seems to be a rise in Afrocentrist beliefs amongst African Americans. How do we stop this? By giving people proper education and things to actually be proud of, rather than feeling that we have to lie and cheat ourselves into cultures that don't belong to ours. That's the best way to do it. And another one of the several goals are from nothing. Alright, if I missed any questions, go ahead and ask them again, because looks like I don't see any others at the moment. Also, the money means very little to me. I'm still working because working because I'm inessential, and I guess that was a bit of a typo. And you entertain me. Have some lunch on me. Appreciate that. I really do. That's enough for like a good McDonald's meal, I guess. By the way, guys, Hidden History, my moderator, he has his own YouTube channel. So go ahead and check him out if you want some more good African history content. See, I made up for making you do things, right? Hidden History. I gave you a shout out. Take that. And you are welcome to link your channel as well for them to go to. Yeah, you linked my Discord to link your own channel. Do that. Does that make up for it? What African country would you like to visit the most, and what country outside of Africa would you like to see? It's a really hard, tough decision on what African country I would like to visit first, because there's a lot. But if I had to go to one first, just because of my team's current efforts, would probably be Mali, just to see like the Timbuktu libraries and things like that, Gen A. But I would also like to see Ghana. I would like to see the traditional Ashanti architecture and learn more about the Ashanti Empire, because honestly, that's one of the most fascinating empires to me. I love their architecture, I love their culture, I love all the things I learned about them are just very impressive. Hence, the emphasis on the Ashanti architecture in my background, for example. So, tough decision. Ideally, I'd want to visit multiple countries. Short answer to my question. I prefer not to Whoa, I've never seen that word. Agglutinate? I prefer not to agglutinate adjectives in my nationality. I would just be too long. I'm very mixed and distant from the roots, so I'm just... You have some very big words in that statement, my friend. Danilo. Any thoughts on when fantasy does make attempts on African culture? I find in most cases they usually just portray this whole tribal thing, you know, this whole noble warrior, you know, with a spear and a loincloth, but great warrior. You know, that's usually what they do. And it's a problem. Yeah, I personally don't really mind people discussing their politics as well, but I just know a lot of people do. So yeah, good call. Hidden history. People would probably, you know, we don't want a political war in here. If you ever visit an African country, you should do a vlog. As I said earlier in the chat, I definitely will. That is a given. I will vlog the whole thing and upload it. Hell, I might even live stream depending on how good of a connection I could get over there. Do you like coffee? Yes, I do. Not a coffee addict, but definitely like some coffee. I really love your channel. I'm trying to make a fantasy series. I'm on the process of world building, and I want to include all world culture. African culture will be in there for sure. Awesome. Well, if you're just don't make the same mistake most other people do. Africa requires a bit more research because there's just not as much of a wealth of knowledge out there on it. So don't make the mistake of just like having like, you know, Britain and Vikings and Romans and all this great stuff, and then Africa. You know, don't make that mistake. Africa is not just this; it's this. You know, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of detail. So just as you're gonna discriminate between Vikings and Romans and Germanic tribes and Celts and Serbs and all that stuff, you have to do that with Africa, but even more so because Africa is the most genetically diverse place in the world. Genetically, ethnically, culturally diverse place in the entire world. But all too often people just try to shove it in this box of Africa, the end. I mean, if you want to if you want stuff to say up, I'll unremove. Just remembering that on DC we have a separate channel for that stuff. Yeah, Discord. If you want to discuss politics and stuff, you can join our Discord. Like there's a topic specifically called controversial topics. It doesn't make you exempt from rules, obviously, but it's like if you wanted to discuss things that may make people feel a bit uncomfortable, like politics or religion and things like that, you can do it in that channel. Thank you so much for the $15 donation, Elizabeth. Really, really appreciate it. Do you like Nollywood movies? I've watched a few, skimmed through a few before. Not gonna lie, I love the effort. I love the fact that it's a thing. But they're just... Nigeria has the resources to make better movies, let me just put it that way. So I think right now it's just currently dominated by a bunch of people who just want money. That's really all it is. They just want money. And their topics tend to focus more on making it out as just showing pretty much like what rappers do, I guess. Just show how rich they are, and for the most part, obviously there's exceptions, but show how rich they are, how nice their car is, how nice their life is. All the while having very horrible special effects. That's just my opinion on Nollywood. And I hope in the future that changes. What's your views on the American census? Guess I need you to be a bit more specific. I mean, census is a census to me. It's just how we track our population and where taxpayer money goes to, and demographics like gays and lesbians and races and ages. It's just how we keep track of the status of our population. That's really all I have on it. Do you support Sanders? It's just like Hidden History said, that's a political thing. We won't really discuss this in the chat, but just to save you some trouble, I'm not a very political person at all. As I said, it hurts my head. So it sucks. I know I have the right to vote for free and all that stuff. People are gonna demonize me for it till the day I die, but it's just politics are just a bunch of immature arguing children, in my opinion. At this point, they're not what they were intended to be. When you visit Africa, prepare for people to try to cheat you. They will associate with you with money immediately. They hear your American accent. I'm sure that probably depends on the country and the person. So Even in America, people try to cheat me. So I mean, I'm sure I can use my own intuition to know what people's ulterior motives are. But I appreciate the warning. You know the book Veiled Genocide by Tidiane Ndaye? Sorry if I said that wrong. It's mostly about Islamic slavery on Sub-Saharan Africa. The author is French Senegalese and gets to horrible casualty numbers. I don't know anything about that book. I'm also not a big book reader, so that's also a thing. Most of the extent of my book reading is down to research. Which, by the way, guys, this book is the one I used for that book on African armor, by the way, which I will still be referencing for the next part of that video, which will be about arms. It's a really good book if you want to know more about African arms and armor. So this was the primary method of research I used. Have you been to Japan? I have not, but I have been to Korea. I lived there for a year. And my roommate is actually also Korean. How big was the Sokoto Caliphate compared to others in the Arab world? During that same period of time, I'd say it was pretty sizable, aside from the Ottoman Empire, which was humongous. But yeah, I think it was pretty decently sized. But compared to all Islamic empires, it was not very impressive in size. And that's just because there were several very, very large Islamic empires. You should have a book review video every once in a while you talk about books set in Africa. And yeah, actually, that book I just showed you guys, the author gave me written permission to make an audiobook on that. Which, as much as I want to do, I just haven't really found the time to do it. But he gave me written permission, so you guys can probably expect to see that at some point in the future, if I ever do get around to it. Do you believe Christianity and Islam helped shape West Africa in a positive or negative way, or both? I'd say both. Starting with Islam, it tied Africa into the rest of the world, politically, culturally. It allowed West African kingdoms to not be so isolated because they were constantly trading with Eurasia via Islamic trade networks. Negatively, because it turned Africans against their brothers and their ways of life and their traditions. It made them enslave people who practiced their own indigenous religions. So that's how it's negative. Christianity, on the other hand, I think was mostly negative. Christianity went hand in hand with colonialism. And it solidified the view of the inferior African. And just like I said in my video about the Ifa corpus, that is a very impressive, purely African religious concept. Purely African, very impressive, very just from the core out, very intellectual tradition that needs to be preserved. But because it's not Christian, a lot of people criticize it and don't want anything to do with it, unfortunately. Fortunately, UNESCO is preserving it as intangible cultural heritage, which it is. But unfortunately, a lot of Nigerians are like, nah, that's pagan voodoo witch doctor stuff. Let's not have anything to do with that. Can you explain the objects in the room on the green screen? This particular background, I'm sure you saw an overly simplified version of that in my older videos that I made. I mean, I could have made something better, but I don't want to stretch myself too thin. So I'm sure you remember the overly simplified background I had before with this. But this was based off of an image I found of an Ashanti fetish house interior, and I can't tell you the specifics of each object, but in general, they were of spiritual significance to the Ashanti religion, and these were objects that were in a room specifically for religious purposes. That's the most I can really tell you. The stool is an important thing in Zulu culture, if I recall correctly. Yeah, the stool was a very important thing in like various sub-Saharan African cultures. It was very important in a lot of West African cultures as well. If you guys can give me 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Nice Ashanti house, Jabari. Appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, that's courtesy of my artist. Inspired by an image of a Ashanti fetish house and my old, rushed, crappy background I had before. Let's overthrow the Empire while he's away. Whoa. I think I need to go ahead and remove Hidden History's moderator powers. Nollywood and Bollywood are funny AF. Most of the humor is based to the effort. Yeah, I don't know. I think Bollywood's a bit better than Nollywood, honestly, as far as quality is concerned, though. So as much as it pains me to. Will she stop scratching my chair? You get to go to the camera again because you keep scratching my chair. Yeah, look how uncomfortable she looks. Get a dog. Dogs require way too much attention. Even she requires way too much attention, hence why she keeps scratching my chair and keeps interrupting me. Imagine a dog. That would suck. No, I like all animals, but I don't have the time or the patience for a dog right now. Let me just put that way. Add an animation where the British burn it down. Burn down what? From nothing I know, most books still use the term fetish, but instead of fetish, academics now call them power objects. It seems weird. It seems like very... Like, why not just call them just, like, religious... I don't know, like, religious objects or, like, charms or something, you know? Like, I don't understand why it has to be a fetish or... power. That's that sounds like something from like Star Wars or something. Power object, like Thanos. You know. Appreciate the $2 donation. Flames 2.0. African Kingdoms versus Versu videos. Kingdoms versus I guess. Kingdom versus Kingdom. I did think of something similar to that. I was gonna do, if you guys are familiar with the series Deadliest Warrior, I was gonna pit African warriors against other warriors from out in the world, because out of the whole Deadliest Warrior series, they only had 2 African warriors, both of which were very I mean, they could have picked so many better warriors than the two they picked. They picked Zulu and Zande. Zande's had some awesome weapons, but that's really, that's really it. Zulus, they didn't even have awesome weapons. They had an awesome army, but not awesome weapons. They're just, I don't know. I feel like they could have picked better warriors. But yeah, I definitely have some plans on doing the Deadliest Warrior series for sure. How tall are you? I am 6'2". I'm tall, yes. I wish I had money to donate right now. Well, I appreciate the thought, Raycaster. Deadliest Warrior blew my mind as a 13-year-old, yeah. How old are you, Raycaster? I can't remember when that series came out, but I do remember watching it in my teens, and it was awesome. It's just, whenever I saw African Warriors, I'm like, yeah. Oh. Like, why did they put Shaka Zulu against William Wallace? What were they even thinking? Like, duh. Like, who was going to win that one? It shouldn't have even been guy with armor and a giant sword versus guy with no armor and a little short spear. Who's going to win? I wonder. They could have picked so many better warriors to put against him. Me loved it, but it was a very bad show. The reenactments were bad. The Africans they used were bad. But other than that, I think it was a very good show and a very good idea. If we took the best warriors of the Middle Ages and put them against the medieval knights, who would win in your opinion? Honestly, probably medieval knights. As much as I don't want to say that, I probably would say medieval knights. Their armor, like, there's really not much you can do about that, except maybe get lucky and stab them, like, in the neck or the armpit or something. Like, there's not really... African weapons weren't designed to pierce armor. Africans didn't have big, giant battle axes or maces that broke through armor like Europeans did. Because they didn't have to deal with that kind of armor. They didn't have high-powered crossbows or anything like that was specifically designed to break through armor. Europeans designed weapons like those out of necessity because they had to deal with armored warriors. So, it's not necessarily about who's better, it's just what existed. Had Africans been dealing with fully armored knights, they would have developed weapons like those too. I can confidently say that, but they just didn't. They never had to deal with them, so it's really my opinion on that. To be frank, Chab, I'm pretty sure there's a reason Africans didn't evolve that type of armor. Well, yeah. I specified that reason in my last video. But I'm just saying, if that did hypothetically exist, then they would have developed weapons accordingly. Africans used bows, they had wooden maces. African bows and wooden maces would not have pierced European knights' armor. That's pretty much what I'm saying. They existed, but they would not have pierced their armor. That's the difference. Europeans developed bows and maces that could pierce armor. And they did it out of necessity. I'm not a fan of the African heat stop XYZ argument, but I think it makes sense in the context of wearing full plate knight in the Sahel and they overheat. Yeah, it's like plate armor did exist in the heat. The Condon Empire had plate armor. That is a fact. There is no denying it. It existed. But it was an anomaly and probably was due to influences from peoples from the north who had armor. Reason being, just because it wasn't there, or sorry, my whole thing is the natural evolution. The natural incentive and evolution of it was not innately an African thing. They probably saw other people outside do it and say, that's very effective. But any attempts in the past were probably like quickly pushed to the side because it's hot. It's that simple. Like in the summer when I get in my car, I have to like very carefully open my car. I'm going to burn myself, It's imagine Africa. So it's just like they if they had incentive and reasons to do it, like interactions with the Turks, for example, then yeah. But if they're dealing with a bunch of other people who have little to no armor, why? Why would they purposely have to deal with that heat and that encumbrance. That's really my opinion on it. Yeah, but Jab, it wasn't full plate armor in the sense of European knights. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't full plate. It was plate, but it wasn't full plate. Yeah, I get that. Full plate would have been a death wish. Like, as an army veteran deployed into the Middle East, I could say with our modern armor, which is largely based on, uh, we're wearing. Obviously, we're only wearing. Technically, we're wearing armor similar to the armor of Khan Bornu. It's just a chest plate and that's it. We don't have armor on our arms or legs. Even the year 2020. And from speaking from someone who's worn that in 110-degree weather, I can honestly say just that plate by itself, which was made of ceramic, by the way, not metal, just ceramic, I was hot as hell. I wanted to die. So I can imagine covering my entire body in steel. It's really that simple. Many West Africans traveled to Mecca and such. They would have known about stuff, but obviously decided against it. Exactly. Like, you know, it's just one thing that works in one place is not going to work in every other place. It's that simple. What's up, Jabari? Hey, what's up, Tupac? I haven't seen or heard from you in I don't even know how long. Where you been? What about armor What about armor means constantly fighting Lizzie? Wait. Okay. That was... Perhaps Africans were more socially advanced, really something to use against full plate armor. That's the topic you just have to... It's too complex to just say yes or no to. Socially advanced is something you... Just who is more advanced than other in general is a topic you just... It's too complex to just overly simplify like that. Plate armor is cut and stab proof. Yeah, it is. It's cut and stab proof, but it's also hot as hell. It's that simple. Blunt weapons were one of the most effective weapons to use against full plate armor. Yeah, big, heavy blunt weapons. A wooden club isn't going to be enough, though. But a big, giant steel ball with spikes on it, yeah, that might be enough. Wooden club, a well-placed wooden club might help, but it still wouldn't be enough. But Africans fought off Europeans until Europeans had advances in technology. Yeah, they did. They definitely did. It wasn't because of technological advantages or anything like that, though. It was when Europeans went to the Americas, they encountered people who had smaller populations. In most cases, there were exceptions. Smaller populations, lack of immunity or exposure to the old world diseases. They like to say European diseases, but they were old world diseases, which means Europe, Asia, and Africa all had them. And they also had stone tools for the most part. And even the ones who had metal tools had bronze tools. Which, bronze versus steel, I don't care how good or sharp that bronze is, it's not going to go through a steel chest plate. Even steel's going to have trouble going through a steel chest plate. So, that was the problem. Africans, on the other hand, they had many of the advantages that Europeans had. Some of them even already had guns. When Europeans arrived, some Africans already had guns from Arabs. Plus, they had metal armor, metal weapons, horses, large populations, cities. They had basically everything Europeans had, let me rephrase that. They had pretty much all the military advantages they needed to fend off Europeans for a very long time. They didn't have to be on par with Europeans to be enough. Even if a full European force, full imperial force from Britain invaded, let's just say circa 1500, a full British force invaded, 15th century, Mali, they'd probably still have a lot of trouble and may very well likely get their asses kicked. Simply not because one's technology was better than the other, but just because the gap in technology wasn't big enough for one to be definitively better than the other, as it was in the Americas. Like the technological gap wasn't large enough. At that point, it was really all about who was the best tactician, which one had the most men and the best strategies. Like at that point, because the gap wasn't like that. Like in the late 1800s, the gap was like that, but back then the gap was like that. So that's pretty much my take on that. Kind of surprised we don't see more lamellar armor out of Africa. They clearly have good metalworking, and lamellar breeds better than plate, so why not use it? Yeah, honestly don't know. I mean, you saw lots of chainmail, so maybe they just favored chainmail. That's my guess. Think I may have missed some more questions. Sorry guys, I'm doing my best to keep up if I can. I don't know much armor at all in the Forest Kingdoms aside from the Benin. Apparently the Yoruba had it too. Yeah, the Yoruba had chainmail, which was more than likely adopted from other people. Like, there's very little evidence that was indigenous. And then the Benin, their armor seemed very, very, very local. Like, there's nothing like it anywhere around them. So, the Native Americans had metalwork, copper, and arsenic. Yeah, they did. They had the Andean civilizations were in a full-blown Bronze Age. They had bronze axes and spears and even bronze daggers. Some of their armor was made of bronze. Like, there was a whole nother Bronze Age completely outside, isolated, independently developed in the Andes that had nothing to do with the Old World. And then most Native Americans, at the very least, could make gold, or they could cold forge copper, at the very least. But the overwhelming majority, including the Andean civilizations, still used stone. The Andean civilizations, despite having bronze, they still relied heavily on stone. Are there online African history forums? There is one I know of called Egypt Search, but as you can tell by the name, it's heavily emphasized on Egypt. And as naturally, a lot of the community has a heavy affinity for wanting to prove the blackness of Egypt. So, if you can deal with that, then by all means. It quickly turned me away, though. I'm not going to lie. There was platinum smithing. Yeah, platinum as well. Platinum, gold, copper, bronze. But when it comes to full-blown smelting, though, as far as I know, Andean civilizations were the only people who really mastered that. As far as I know. I could be wrong. Full-blown smelting in forges. Mesoamerica and North America are weird with bronze. They seem to favor stone weapons for use and bronze as art tools, utensils. Very strange compared to the rest of the world. Not quite, Hodakis. In the Andean civilization, bronze was used for utilitarian purposes. Like in most Americas, yeah, it was mostly ceremonial jewelry and stuff like that. But in the Andean civilizations, bronze was used as a utilitarian thing. But bronze, back then, even in the old world and even the present, bronze is an expensive metal. It's just, it has copper in it, and copper is rare and expensive. So stone was still used, just like in the Bronze Age back in the old world. Stone was still used alongside bronze because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to get your hands on. It all came down to price. All right, Sonia, see you later. Thanks for tuning in. Fully armored knights would have difficulties invading various African areas because they would be too slow, so Africans could use retreating like Russia used against Germany. Yeah, African warfare was typically a lot less a lot more what's the word? More specifically in the forested regions, small detachments, mobile detachments versus Europeans, a very large campaign just kind of converging on each other. Not saying those large campaigns didn't happen in Africa, but it's too diverse of a place to really just simplify it as African warfare. But they had smaller detachments that were more mobile, so they could have used that to their advantage. Speaking of Golden Mirrors, it annoys me that trailers for Black Panther felt the need to compare Wakanda to El Dorado, a non-African legend. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me because if you compare, when you want to give a Westerner context for comparison, something to relate to, you got to give them something that they know about. So if you say Mansa Musa was this many times richer than Bill Gates, that lets you know, oh, so he was that rich. But if you say he was this many times richer than Askia Muhammad, people are gonna be like, who the hell is Askia Muhammad? So it makes sense. I do the same thing personally for that reason. It's not because West is like the European culture is like the center of like what I want or what I need or how I feel or etc. It's just like you gotta have some. It's just like I told somebody in my comment section the other day. If somebody tries a new food, right? They're like, tastes like chicken. Why does chicken have to be in the focus, huh? Why do we care about chicken? We're talking about this alligator that you just tried. Why you gotta say chicken? It's because more people know about chicken. More people are familiar with chicken. They can write a be like, oh, okay, so that's how it tastes. So that's why I think it is important to compare things to compare them, not exclusively focus on, but compare to, so you can have a context of how you should evaluate that thing afterwards. So that's why I personally do it, and I would like to think that's why they do it as well. Plate armor doesn't slow you down, contrary to popular belief, especially if it's well made and tailored to your body and weight. If distributed all over. Based on what I can see, and from my own experience wearing modern military armor, it does slow you down. It's not like overwhelmingly like, oh my god, it's not like that, but if there is more weight that you're carrying, logic and physics will say it's going to slow you down. It's really that simple. If I have perfectly evenly distributed armor around my entire body that adds about 30-40 pounds to my body, but it's perfectly evenly distributed in one perfectly awesome layer, it's still going to slow me down. That's like randomly gaining 30 or 40 pounds and not feeling any difference. It's not how it works. Your muscles are gonna bear the brunt of that weight difference. It's really that simple. Your muscles, your stamina, your endurance. Especially if it is not evenly distributed and it's like smacking around everywhere. But yeah, I mean, it's not. People may exaggerate how much it encumbered you. I can agree to that, but it's still gonna slow you down. You should make a YouTube community. Yeah, I don't know. Google's been releasing way too much stuff. I can't really keep up with it. Plate armor restrains joints. It's also heavy, and at least it can be. Jabbar is correct. Yeah, joints. I do feel like in the late medieval period they did kind of master that because they put like the pivoting things on the joints and stuff like that. But still, though, each and every little bit of weight you add is gonna add encumbrance. So it's really that simple. Even in combat sports like boxing, MMA, putting on weight slows down the fighters and affects their overall stamina. Yeah, exactly. African quilted armor was also known in Eurasia. They made many styles similar to African design. Huh. You have a source for that? I mean, I know quilted armor was popular all around the world, including Mesoamerica and the Inca as well. So it was obviously independently developed in multiple places, but specifically saying it was African armor influenced it. I'd like to know more on that because I haven't heard anything about that. I want to create my own ethnic group. Good luck with that. You'd have to make like a big movement, like Muhammad or something, or Jesus Christ, in order for that to happen. Or just do something else uh, equally as impacting. Start a big family. What do you think the city of Tasseti? I think it's just a demonstration of an ancient black civilization. I mean, it's really nothing more I could say about it. A demonstration of a ancient black civilization that people don't really know about, and unfortunately, when they do know about it, they assume it was something to do with the Egyptians. So, that's all I got to say about it. So, on a different note, guys, how are you faring during this COVID situation? Do you have any families or loved ones who are affected by it? I'm curious because as far as I know, I'm fine up here in Ohio. My family's fine down in Florida. I haven't had anyone I know directly who was affected by it. I'm curious about you guys. All right, more specifically, how has the actual virus affected the health of you or people you've known? That was the better question. How'd you lose your job, Tanawi? I don't. How is that even legal? You can't get your weekly burritos. Oh darn, your burritos. Whatever shall we do? Very worried about my parents because they're old and therefore susceptible to the virus, but so far we're safe. Yeah, just make sure you make all runs for them and make sure you wear a mask and hand sanitizer every time you do. That's really the best advice I can give you. For me, I've been going out with no mask, no gloves. I'll use hand sanitizer if it's there, but I haven't been worried. I'm young, and it doesn't really affect young people. And to be honest, I think I might have actually already had it because my roommate works in an international store, came home sick one day, coughed everywhere, got me sick for like a week, and I can't remember the last time I've been sick that sick before. So I may have actually had it, to be honest, but I've been good for like the past week now. You in my video about African armor, you may have actually heard in some parts of it my voice was like really like because I was sick, but it's all good now. I was laid off, but I'm going to receive unemployment. Honestly, I would rather be at work. I also gained like 10 pounds from quarantine. Damn. Yeah, man, just here's some advice. If you're trying to stay in shape, set yourself a timer on the hour every hour. At the very least, get up and do 10 push-ups or do 10 push-ups. Just that. On the hour every hour. If you're awake for even 10 hours, that's 100 push-ups. That's a lot of calories and that's building some muscle. That's what I used to do before. I'm going to actually start doing it again, to be honest. So far, no one I know has been affected health-wise, but like other countries, has closed down most businesses and schools, and my state has gone into lockdown. Yeah, sounds about where I'm at. I know about 20 people that have recovered thus far, probably a dozen that still have it. Oh, wow. You must be in one of the really hot spots, Chris Fine. There's still some people who encounter at work who swear this whole thing is a hoax. There's always going to be people like that. Stupid Corona ruined my ship and date for basic training army. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, it's already a long enough wait to begin with joining the military, but then we have something like this. That sucks. I'm sorry. Well, hey, basic training sucks too, so I guess it's up to you to decide which one sucks the most. COVID is not a hoax. I have been to the hospitals. They are scary. And from Canada, low death rate, but we know too little about the virus. Stay well, Jabari. Yeah, I definitely don't think it's a hoax, and I appreciate it. You stay safe too. I hope you all stay safe during this pandemic. I'm 28 years old, and I've never. I mean, I know I'm not that old, but I've never. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff in my 28 years on this planet. I've seen 9/11. I remember sitting in my 5th grade classroom, 10 years old, watching the Twin Towers get attacked live on TV. I've seen these recessions with George Bush, and I've just seen all kinds of the wars in the Middle East igniting the first black president. I've seen a lot of stuff in my short time on this earth, but never have I imagined seeing something like this, where it literally feels like The Walking Dead at this point. It's crazy. I just do push-ups, sit-ups, and squats, 100 each during quarantine. Yeah, just do like 10 on every hour, because the thing is, 10 isn't that much. It's really not. But when you do it every hour, it accumulates. It builds up. That's a lot of calories and a lot of muscle mass you can build. And, just because you guys are talking about this, and I've been telling myself I need to start doing it again, all of us right now, leave your computer right now, do it with me. 10 push-ups. You guys good? Let me know if you're good. Tell me if you want to do it. If you don't want to, that's fine. You only have to tell me you don't want to. But for those of you who do want to, let me know. Say yes. Give me a thumbs up or yes or something. Awesome, guys. All right, let's do it. I'll give us 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Actually, pause. Maybe next time I stream, I have my other camera set up here. I'll have it aimed at the ground. And then I'll actually do the push-ups on camera too, just so you guys can see me doing it. Right now, my setup is very static, and I don't really want to screw anything up. But yeah, next time I'll set that camera to be aimed right down at me. All right, so let's do it. Let's go right now. Let's do 10 push-ups. All right, I did my 10 push-ups. You guys good? You feel fat? 15? Nice. Nice job, Tech. You'll be doing lots of them when you join the army. Was it you who said you were joining the army? Oh, hey, Alyssa. Alyssa's a classmate of mine, by the way, guys. Thanks for tuning in. You squat 250 pounds right now? Wait, you were squatting 250 pounds, or you can squat 250? You just did it right now? Give me a... So I gotta catch my breath. Hey man, progress. Eventually you won't need to catch your breath anymore. You're just gonna be like, ah, I did it. Can we do like 10 more? That's how it works. You make progress. Way harder than you thought. Yeah. You'll get used to it. One thing I learned in the military is the more you do them, the more you learn it's more about the technique rather than your actual physical strength. Getting the muscle memory, as they call it, getting the muscle memory down is what makes the biggest difference. Is the background on the screen from a Shanty house interior? Yes, it is, Michael. So, did they give you a good ETA when you do ship out tech? Sir, can this soldier catch a nap real quick, sir? I would love to see you try to ask a drill sergeant whether you can take a nap. I will go there and I will record it. Did 25 push-ups, albeit slowly, and promote muscle hypertrophy. Hey man, it's something. Oh, thank you so much for the $20 donation, Tupac. You are awesome. Biggest donation so far today. That is amazing. I really appreciate that, man. Where have you been? Honestly, where have you been? I haven't seen you in forever. I haven't seen you in my comics, my comments, or my Discord or anything. I mean, you were one of the OGs of this channel, man. You were one of the first people who'd be in my comment section every video. 3 to 4 years ago, I said when I get a job, I was gonna donate to you. Promise kept. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You remember what a girl push-up is? Well, I did 10 of them. Nice. Well, hey, I'm not judging how you do your push-ups. Just remain consistent and then build upon those. So how about this for the rest of the stream? Because I don't foresee myself streaming for like 10 hours. For the rest of the stream, every 15 minutes, we will do 10 push-ups. Good? And if I forget, remind me. So it's 6:53 right now. So at 7:18, we'll do 10 more. What are you drinking there, bro? I don't need to disclose that. It is a red colored beverage. That's all you need to know. I feel like Tyrion Lannister. So, for those of you who have been in my stream in previous years, have you noticed the difference with the camera, by the way? Because I recently upgraded this camera a couple weeks ago, actually. Does this camera look better quality than the ones in the previous streams? I mean, I know it's not a huge difference and it's been a while, but has anybody noticed like, whoa, his camera looks pretty clear this time? I'm just curious. My father told me a story when one of his friends once did an American salute instead of a French one. The sergeant tore him a new one. Yeah. Dude, it doesn't matter how big or small the problem is, the mistake is. If you make even the slightest, tiniest mistake, they don't care. The important thing to remember, though, for those of you who are currently joining the military, the most important thing to remember is it's nothing personal. They're doing their job. They don't know you. They don't care about you. They know nothing about you. They just went to a class on how to be a drill sergeant, followed what their instructor told them to do, and did it. That's it. They don't, anything they say about you, they don't mean it. They're just doing what they were told to do. That's it. So, as long as you remind yourself of that, your feelings won't be hurt. If somebody says something about your mom, they don't know your mom. They don't care. They don't know anything about you or your mom. They just said it because they know that it's supposed to say stuff like that. So that's the most important thing to do when you join the military. It's just constantly reminding yourself of that. For me, my hardest struggle was not the drill sergeants themselves, but the other people I was with. Just like any other close interaction with people, people clash. High school, middle school, people clash, people get immature, rumors spread around, so on and so forth. That was my biggest struggle with basic training. They can't even touch you? No, they can't. They're not. If they do, they can get in trouble. I've never been physically attacked by it. The only time they can legally physically attack you is if you do something that threatens the safety of other people. So, for example, if you're at the shooting range and you flag somebody or something, they can legitimately, like, you know, body slam you if they want to. And they will. They will. So, but other than that, no, they're not gonna touch you. Books I've read on African history refer to oracles and the importance of oracles in government and society, but assume the reader knows what an oracle is. Would you be able to elaborate? Oracle. Why am I drawing a blank of that? Are you referring to like a griot? Pretty sure you're replying to a griot, right? Jabari, I've been on a journey of self-improvement and maturing into adult. Has been some of the hardest challenges in my life. Soon I live in Ohio and I'd love to meet up. Oh, awesome. Yeah, definitely, man. For sure. Anybody in Ohio, I'm 100% okay, 100% happy and down for a meetup. Anybody. I'm new here, and frankly, I'm alone here. I'm like, my ex is no longer with me, unfortunately. So, yeah, I'm kind of by myself at this point. So yeah, if you're in Ohio, I'd love to make some friends and meet up. Just send me a DM on Discord or Twitter if you're interested. Wait, Jab, you're in Ohio? I thought you were in Florida. I was, but I moved to Ohio going on a year ago. So I live near a military base. Y'all be some freaks. Yeah. Yeah, I can vouch for that. I was not one of those freaks, but I experienced those freaks. You sound like you're from Texas? I'm from Florida, actually. I can't say I've ever had anybody tell me I sound like I was from Texas, but yeah, I am from the South. So that may hopefully explain some of it for you. Also, shout out to Redwall for not only being sure to advertise my social media and Patreon for me, but also for being the cartographer of my mapping projects and just providing tons of invaluable knowledge and sources that I would have otherwise never gotten. He's an anthropologist. He's still in graduate school, actually, as well, for maritime archaeology. He's smart as hell and just an overall awesome person, so shout out to him. I really appreciate him and everything he does for me. One day he's going to be paving the way for all of what we know about Africa. I already know it, I already see it. Jabbar, do you know about the deep web? Have you been to any sites? Whoa. Chat, so randomly scroll past it. Is it bad, but anything of value can come from it? The class I'm in, actually, with Lisa Rosum, by the way, classmate of mine, what we learned about the deep web is it's not what people think it is. It's not this weird place you gotta enter some kind of matrix code to get into, blah, blah, blah. It's just sites that do not show up on search engines. Sites that have excluded their presence in search engines. That's all the deep web is. And usually they do that if they don't want to be tracked. like pirating places, places with illegal stuff. And so you'd specifically have to know the web address to get there. So I don't know, say there's this place that sells ivory, right? Ivory, which is illegal. And it's called like ivorytusks.com or something like that. You'd specifically have to know ivorytusks.com and go there to get to it. It's not this special portal web that you go to. It's just specific websites that are not searchable by web engines. That's all it is. Could good come from it? Could good come from it? Maybe. Maybe there's things that people want to voice opinions on things that the government wants to hide from us. And the only way to do it is deep web, yeah. But in the majority of cases, no. They're doing something illegal and immoral. That's the way I see it. Which area do you live in, Ohio? And is it Columbus, Cleveland, or Cincinnati? That's at least vague enough so people don't stalk. I don't really care. I live in Columbus. I mean, if you can track me down to my specific address in my city, then I'm impressed. I'm not one of those overly paranoid people, don't worry. So yeah, I live in Columbus, Ohio, for anybody who wants to know. But if you want to know more details than that, send me a DM. Can someone volunteer to send in a script for your channel? What do you mean by a script for my channel? Is that a challenge? It's not a challenge. I'm just saying there's no point in living your life in fear. I'm gonna give you my city of 800, or actually almost 900,000 people, but that's it. I'm not gonna be super scared. Oh, I'm not gonna tell you what state I live in because safety, no. If you're desperate enough to track me down in a city of 900,000 people, kudos, I guess. But yeah, gotta go eat dinner. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, Red Spirit Mask. Appreciate you. Jabari has a Glock underneath the mattress. Well, I do have a Glock, but I wouldn't say it's underneath the mattress. But good guess. I won't tell you where it is, but I do have one. Do you plan to eventually move on to other parts of Africa aside from West Africa, such as Central, South, and Horn? Or will West Africa always be your focus? I do definitely plan to move on to other parts. West is my primary focus. Because for one, again, biased, but West Africa is my history. And most of diaspora's history, West and Central. But also just the fact that West Africa tends to just have a lot more going on. Frankly speaking. West Africa just has had tons and tons of stuff going on all the time. So that's like, I do like a lot of the things about the other parts. Like, for example, the Caesarean sections I mentioned earlier, those were East Africa. Unapologetically East Africa. Had to mention them. It was just very interesting. But most of the historical events and the things that I cover took place in West Africa. So that's why. Optimum. Oh wait, wrong thing. All right, guys, keep the questions coming if you got any. Also, we're coming up on our 15 minutes, right? Was it 10 minutes or 15 minutes? I think it was 15. Yeah, it was 15. It was 6:53 when I said that. So it's been about 12 minutes. So in 3 minutes, we're doing 10 more push-ups. So everybody good for that? Any complaints? You're referring to the dark deep web, anything that can be accessed via navigator like binge or Bing or Google. The Digital Museum images the deep web as most cannot be accessed from, say, Google Image. Yeah, not being able to access something with a search engine is the deep web. Or dark web, or there are various names, deep web, dark web, so on and so forth. That is just specifically refers to sites that can't be accessed through via search engines. You think medieval Mali would be good setting for an Assassin's Creed game? I've heard that question so many times to the point where I wonder why it hasn't been a thing yet. Yes, it would be. Especially like games like Prince of Persia, Assassin's Creed, with Sahelian architecture, with the beams sticking out of the sides of the buildings and stuff like that. Like, imagine like all the parkour and stuff they do on those. That would be perfect. Uncover sites yet to be found. No, Alyssa. As our instructor so eloquently told us, dark web simply refers to websites that can only be known by someone specifically giving you their web address. You can't search them on Google or Bing or Yahoo or anything else. That's all it is. As long as there's tall stuff to jump off of. Exactly, yeah. Yes, Sahel has lots of tall stuff to jump off of and lots of beams to parkour and jump off of. So, yeah. From nothing, what is your take on 5G? There has been a lot of posts circulating around the internet, people saying that they cause flu-like symptoms and that it was used to get people sick. I put that into the whole conspiracy theory stuff. Like usual, it's 5G is a radio frequency, not a virus. It's that simple. Viruses and light are two totally different things. If anything, light kills viruses. So, yeah, no. Conspiracy, just like chemtrails and all that stuff like that. People look for things that anyone who isn't willing to do enough research and learn more about it is gonna believe. But people who do have knowledge of them or are willing to do research into them are not going to believe. It's that simple. What was Atlantic navigation uncommon in West Africa? Because West Africa currents were not favorable for navigation. They went in very, very strong and specific directions. And even when they did go in those very strong and specific directions, there are lots of storms that are... What's the word? What's the word for something that gets created? Created from something. Anyway, most Atlantic storms are created from that region. So, hurricanes, tropical storms come from that region of Africa. And the currents were... it's the same reason why Europeans, it took them until the 1400s with the invention of the lateen sail to actually explore West Africa. Because the winds were not favorable to going somewhere and coming back, but the waters were also just really rough. So, yeah, that's why it was not popular in West Africa. If it weren't for that unavoidable aspect of nature, I am confident West Africa would have had very strong maritime traditions, for sure. They had very strong boat traditions, just not maritime. Redwall could explain in a lot more detail about this, because this is his thing. He loves this stuff. He writes college theses and long papers on these things all the time. So university level things, which I actually might be doing videos of here in the near future whenever I get the chance. So, but in general, yeah, waters and currents were not favorable for maritime in West Africa, as well as just the storm conditions in general. They were bad. That's the simplest answer I could give you. Well, no radio waves are too weak to cause any sickness, unlike gamma waves. Radio waves have been studied and tested. It's hard to scientists to get effect on human MRI radio frequency imaging. Gamma and things like that, they don't cause sickness. No radio waves cause sickness. Gamma waves and stuff will cause symptoms like vomiting and stuff like that, but they won't cause you to be sick. They won't cause you to fall ill. Your immune system is making you do all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. That's not how radio waves work. But they will influence your body's reactions to things and make you throw up and be sensitive to light and things like that, but they won't make you actually fall into an illness like a virus does. So how connected were different African civilizations? For example, did Mali Empire know about Swahili states? Did they have diplomatic correspondence? Usurper. There was a Malian ruler / usurper named Sakara, who actually attempted to establish diplomatic and trade relations with the Swahili states. But unfortunately, during his attempt, he was assassinated. Or, well, more like murdered by bandits, but yeah. So yes, they definitely were aware of them. But as far as I know, they never fully established direct trade routes with them. But they did trade. There are several conclusive archaeological documentations of West Africans trading with the East. Like the Igbo, for example, hands down, ancient Igbo Ukwu was known to have traded with Egypt. The ancient Songhai, traded with Egypt as well. It was basically like the Silk Road of Africa. It went straight across the Sahel. It traded with Egypt. But yeah, other than that, as far as I know, Islamic West Africa and Islamic East Africa, they weren't really contiguously connected, despite efforts in the past. Anyway, we're overdue for our 10 push-ups, so guys, give me a thumbs up or an okay when you're ready. Also, after I do mine, I need to take a little break. So give me an okay or a thumbs up. Let's do it. Come on, guys. More than that. Okay or a thumbs up. Whiny groan intensifies. The whiny groan will detensify after you get more of this under your belt, get more in shape. All right, guys, let's go. We're going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so I did 15 push-ups, by the way, not just 10. 15 push-ups plus bathroom break. So great, palms are sweaty, mom spaghetti. Nice. That's exactly what I wanted. I want all of you guys to have mom spaghetti. So I can just get into myself some water. And yeah, right before as I was standing up to leave, I saw Red. You told me to give Ghost Hero mod. So Ghost, give me just put a message in the chat so I can go ahead and assign you mod. I apologize if I missed that. I'm sure you can understand. How's everybody else feeling with those 10 push-ups? And who did more than 10? Anybody? Argonian guy, 25. Were they real push-ups though? Were you breaking the plane, as we say? Were they like this, or were they just like that? I don't know if I'm doing them correctly, but I don't feel tired. Yeah, you probably weren't doing them correctly. Yeah, like I said, military style push-ups, breaking the plane is when your elbow comes all the way flush with your back. So like that. If you're just doing them like that, you're not doing them right. Are we working on any animated projects? Unfortunately, no, not at the moment. I mean, we haven't given up. We're going to be doing more, but just at the moment, no, we're not. I have not been doing extensive research of the Tawana people, but I know for sure that they come from the Bantu expansion. Yeah, the Bantu expansion really changed the face of Africa, that's for sure. Like, most of what we know as normal Africa was not normal until the Bantu expansion. All right, guys. Any questions that I missed? Oh, there we go with Ghost. Not sure if you messaged before, but I just noticed your message again. So let me go ahead and give you mod. All right, Ghost, you are now mod in chat. Sorry about the delay. You now have the giant blue wrench. I hope you feel special. The Bantu expansion may be false. Why do you say that? Makes me wonder what groups lived in the areas that Bantus took. We already know. There were mostly pygmies and and Khoi and San peoples in those areas. Most of them were they lacked iron tools or agriculture, so it made them especially vulnerable because those are two humongous advantages. Agriculture leads to larger populations, which would mean outnumbering your opponents, and then iron tools, self-explanatory. They're just better than stone weapons. And no, most African Americans are not Bantu. Most African Americans are West African, which West African Atlantic peoples, though very related to Bantu, are not Bantu. So that's where a big misconception rests. West Africans they share a common ancestor with Bantu, but they're not Bantu. Yes, Niger Congo A and Niger Congo B. Don't forget to check these messages, moderators. You've been doing a good job, but don't forget. What game series would you like to see feature African warriors and kingdoms? Basically anything historical. Any RPG, like Chivalry or Skyrim or anything, I'd love to see, because they tend to focus on basically everywhere but Africa. So no, those are separate from the Bantus. Yeah, they are. All right, guys. So we've been going for good 2 hours now, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, 2.5 hours now. I appreciate all this time we had together on this quarantine. May very well like to do another stream sometime soon, but for now, we had our fun. It was great. I loved interacting with you guys and genuinely had a good time. Hope you guys did too. Hopefully this kind of distracted you from this BS we've been going through. I appreciate all the support and all the time and the conversations, but gonna call it at this point. Really enjoyed it though, guys. I like genuinely did, and I will be back. I'll try to do these live streams more often. Let me just put it that way. So I'll see you guys next time. I'm sorry, Flames. I really am. Ascended human, he's exactly right. He's ugly, and that's why I'm leaving. That's the only reason. I'm sorry. You caught me. You caught me. My bad. Alright, guys. You have fun and be safe out there during this coronavirus stuff. Now, I'll try to be more consistent with my stream schedules. At the very least, I'll try to do at least one per month. If that's fair. One per month. I will make a serious effort to make that a reality. Is that fair? Alright, Tupac. Have a good day. Again, glad to see you back. Hop back in Discord and leave some comments on my videos. Haven't seen you in forever, man. Seriously. Don't be a stranger. Alright, guys. Thanks for the support and the love. And be safe out there. Hope you enjoyed the stream as much as I did. Have fun.